Starting it. All right, we're live.
Greetings, I'm Leah.
Hi, I'm Annie.
And I'm Nani. And I am totally functional.
We are here today to discuss the amazing movie that we saw opening weekend, the Black Panther, the much anticipated Black Panther movie. Nani watched it in the Bay Area, and the rest of us got a chance to see it in Hollywood, California. So that was really cool.
Ooh.
So Nani, you saw it first. What's your first reaction?
Well, I live in the South Bay area, which is not Oakland, which is heavily featured in the film, which I was really excited about because I have deep roots in Oakland. However, seeing it in the South Bay, first of all, my first thing just walking into the theater, I was so happy to see all of these wonderful brown and black people just like in there. I wore my Afrocentric clothing because that's what everybody wore to the theater, and I didn't get the memo. But so just the energy in the theater, first of all, before we even got into the movie, was so big. The parking lot was full. There was a few kids that were in costume already, and I was just really, really excited about that. What was the environment like in the Hollywood theater?
So unfortunately, I didn't get there as early as I had hoped. So I missed some of that, but I know that that was happening. But I will say that just leading up to opening weekend, it's all anybody was talking about, like at work and on Facebook. All my friends and family members were that's all they were talking about is the opening weekend. So I felt the anticipation, and we planned to go on Saturday night. But then when Friday came, I was like, oh, I kind of wish I was seeing it Friday because it seemed like torture to wait until Saturday night to see it because people started going Friday night and posting their pictures at the movies, and it was really awesome. I didn't get to the theater early, but we are fortunate to have a special guest with us today.
Well, we can just say in the spirit of Black Panther, we were traveling on PC time.
I was late
too. Yeah, we were on African time.
Wait, I gotta say though, even though I was late, I was not the only one who was late. There were still a lot of people in line.
Way later than us.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, technically I wasn't late because the credits hadn't, what do you call it? The trailers hadn't even started. I just wasn't as early. I wanted to get there early to take pictures. Was there and observe all the African garb and all that. But I missed a lot of that because I was rushing in to get in my seat. However, our special guest was there quite early. We have our friend Earl, who's an industry insider with us. He could tell you a little bit about what the atmosphere was like at the Hollywood Theater.
What was the crowd like, Earl?
Oh, the crowd was great. There were lots of kids. There were lots of families, like older people too, like, people in their 60s, like husbands and wives and stuff like that. And everyone was taking pictures because of the ArcLight in Hollywood. They generally have displays with the costumes and things like that. So there were lots of people taking pictures before that, and the atmosphere was amazing. I haven't seen it like that. I go there all the time, and I haven't really seen it like that. With that many African Americans coming out to support a movie like this. So
it was special, wasn't it? I feel like there's just the energy around the movie that just hasn't existed for a movie I can remember.
Earl is neglecting to drop. He saw some celebrities there too.
Woo-hoo! Who was there? You guys were in Hollywood. I expect some celebrities.
There were a few celebrities around. I can't remember all the names, but they were just people around, just people that you've seen on like Blackish and stuff like that. I was like, oh, I know that person. So it was just a good atmosphere and a good vibe. It was good. It was really cool to see it there.
And you guys had an exhibit there too, right? In the theater?
Yeah, they have the costumes. They had all that stuff up.
Yeah, they had several costumes. We'll post a little short video with some of the costumes that we saw there.
Oh, great. I haven't even seen that yet. I can't wait to see it.
Let's get into the movie. First of all, I want to say that visually it was just beautiful. The Wakanda and the visually it was beautiful. The costumes, the people, it was stunning. Like I want to see it again just to absorb.
I know. Are we ready for Wakanda World at Universal now?
Oh yes, that is a great idea.
I want to go there. I just want to go there.
I want to be there.
I think it would be Disney, though. We need to talk to Disney about that. I think Disney owns this one.
I'm sure they're already doing it.
Oh, I will live in Wakanda World.
They already have the Dora Milaje people in costume at Disneyland now.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh my gosh, I can finally get hired now. Your auditions are very specific. They're like, you have to be 5'3", you have to do this, you have to do that. Like they're very, when they audition for the princesses, I was sitting next to this girl in class actually who over the winter break went there to audition to be Jasmine. And she said it was really, really bizarre because everyone there looked like her.
Wow, they like cherry pick people who look just like her.
And she was like, you have to have like long dark hair and you have to be 5'3" and like just a bunch of weird requirements.
Well, maybe now that it's a Dora Milaje, then it will be different, you know?
Mm-hmm. You have a new career waiting for you, Marie. It's the Dora Milaje.
So I would say, like, in terms of the storyline, it was not what I expected. The storyline was different. I thought it would be more about, the traditional like superhero movie that has the bad guy versus the super villain versus the super good guy person. Whereas in this movie, it was a little different because you could empathize and understand both sides of the story. So that was something that I didn't expect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really like that too. I thought also, and I saw the cartoon in the original movie a really, really long time ago, but what I think they did differently in this movie was that they focused a lot on the culture and the history and the language. And I just vaguely remember from the cartoons and stuff, it being like slightly, I feel like, more like action-y and superhero-y in that respect. But I just really liked how what I feel like there was just a lot of African pride in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt the Pan-African pride, and I was really excited about that. I also really liked all of the strong Black women in the film, like basically the Royal Guard were women, and I thought that was really excellent choice for the movie.
And I'll just jump in. That choice, like that's right out of the comics. Like all of his lieutenants in the comics, they're all women. There's no men in his in the Dora Milaje. So that was extremely accurate to the comics. They did a really good job in visualizing that.
So, Earl, is it the case that the Black Panther comic book is like seen as kind of a bastion of female strength, like not just in the Black community? Like, I don't know why it feels like it should be the case if that's the context of the comic book.
Well, yeah, I mean, they definitely push the really strong female characters in all the Black Panther comics, because 4 or 5 people have, there's actually more than that, but there's 4 or 5 main people that have kind of touched it over the years, beginning with Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and going more recently with like Reginald Hudlin and Ta-Nehisi Coates. Like each person that took a crack at it, they've modernized it and kind of brought it up to date and invented new characters and updated the characters and made it more about politics. So they've really brought it up to date, but the female characters have always been a staple. The relationship with his mom and the Dora Milaje, and his sister actually becomes a really important character because in the comics, I don't know if they're going to do this in the movies, but in the comics, his sister Shuri becomes the Black Panther.
I like the sister. I relate to her. She's like, I am not going to be spending all my time on my ceremonial outfit. I have technology to deal with.
Yeah, she was good. I liked her a lot because they really showed the dynamic between a brother and a sister. And I particularly understand that because I have four sisters. So just that dynamic of seeing the way that they would kind of bring him down to, that she would bring it down to earth, where, she would kind of, like mock him, as being the king, and kind of like constantly, like playing around with him, just like a younger sister would do, or like any sister would do. Like if you're getting a bit too big for your boots, they kind of bring you back down to earth. So I thought that was handled really, really, really well. It's just very funny too.
I agree. And she just had the perfect balance of like a little bit of innocence and sassiness and strength and just, like real passion for her craft. I just liked her character. I thought she was really well-rounded.
Yeah, and she was a woman in STEM.
Woo! Big up to all the STEM women.
I'm really curious, Earl, to hear about what they kept and what they didn't keep from the comics.
Yeah, that's a good question.
What's in the movie and what they didn't keep?
Yes.
That's complicated because they combined a lot of the different storylines in a lot of the different Black Panther comics because you had the original comic that was more kind of purely centered in Africa, and with the more up-to-date ones, it was about how Black Panther integrates with the real world, like that kind of like real world storyline. Like when I say real world, I mean the States. Just like what is that relationship, and should they help more people because they have so much technology, so much financial resources? Like that debate was excellent. I was really surprised and sort of proud that they were able to do that with the Killmonger character, because in the original comic he's not from the States, but he leaves Wakanda and comes back. If I'm remembering it correctly, but the embodiment of the Killmonger character was great because his point of view is right. Like he has a valid point of view of what he's embodying and what he wants for people outside of Wakanda. So
yeah, I went through this whole thing during the movie of being that my DNA is half African American and half African, seeing those two stories collide, and it was like one was asking of the other something, and I don't know, I just thought it was really deep, and it gave me it made me pause and think, and I was like, whoa, that was really serious to have, an African American character asking of this African nation, and he literally and figuratively was left behind, literally as when his dad was killed, he was left there in America, but also figuratively as African Americans being, in America and having very little relationship with Africa. That whole idea just kind of blew my mind. And I don't know, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, and I think it's really clever or insightful that they touched on, how separate the two communities actually can be. We're all Black, but at the same time, we can be worlds apart. I mean, we are worlds apart in a lot of ways.
Well, I have a question, kind of touching on that. What do you think Wakanda should or should not do?
That's the question.
Well, it gets really complicated, right? Because if they branch out from Wakanda and try to help Africa, what they would see as like African Americans or Afro Caribbeans, like all over the world, they basically be waging war against the whole world, and I don't think that's Wakanda's philosophy. So I think they ended the movie really well, where it was, the king just taking that first step,
right?
And just kind of tiptoeing into that exact question, like what exactly should they do?
Yeah, and I think that's like a question for kind of every developed nation is like you have these resources, but also who really gives you the authority to be like the moral voice of the rest of the world? And
Yeah,
yeah, I thought that concept was really interesting. And I was kind of like, even just as I was watching it, thinking through some of those problems, like if Wakanda was real, I mean, hypothetically, like just any developed nation that's in a position to help, I guess, like people in crisis, like what should they do?
Well, I think it's really interesting the way that they are kind of hinting at solving the problem, because I think typically what happens is people speak nation to nation, right? The Wakandan government or a government would go and they would share information and resources with the other government, right? But then we end up with this kind of trickle down. How is that supposed to help the people who are oppressed? However, if you think of it in a different way, if you're going to be infusing technology into a new country, why not do it through the most oppressed people? Like, okay, that's fine. We'll share this technology for it with you. Let us educate, the people in your ghettos, the people in your hoods, to create, understand, and build this technology. And through that community, then you can have this information, but only through the people who are least oppressed. It's almost like instead of, starting at the top and hoping it trickles down to the impoverished people, start at the bottom. And the people at the top don't get it until the people at the bottom are lifted up. I don't know if that's exactly where they're going, but it's a new development model.
I think it's a complicated concept that I think they've touched on in the comic before, like particularly with the Claw character, because that's kind of where he's coming from. Because he's like a poacher and a weapons designer and that kind of thing, but he believes that Wakanda are like hypocrites in a way, that they're like sitting on all of this wealth and knowledge and they're not sharing it. So his take is to just steal it. So he has a bit of a more kind of brutal approach. So I think they did a really interesting job with him. I don't know if you guys remember, but they've been setting him up in some of the earlier Marvel movies because he was in Age of Ultron, and Ultron was made of vibranium. So he had actually stolen, like that. There's some reference to it in the movie that he had stolen vibranium, and he was working with Ultron, and Ultron built himself from vibranium. And even a little bit of what Ultron has is kind of like has some connections to vibranium too. So that character, Claw, he's a huge character in the comics. He's one of Black Panther's main villains, and he has that philosophy of you have so much, but you're keeping it all to yourself,
Yeah.
And so his philosophy is like, I'm just gonna take it. I'm gonna take it, and I'm gonna expose you, because he feels that they're like hypocrites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I understand the Wakandans' concern, and it's a valid one, and one that I feel like there's a lot of different questions. One is, what do you share in terms of just knowledge and cultural capital and those things? In the case of vibranium, even if you share it, then it can be turned into whatever whoever you share it with wants it to turn into. So it can be turned into weapons of mass destruction. So I understand their need to protect that, in a way, because there's a lot of people who will use that and use it to do
They'll
evil
do
instead
bad
of
things with it.
And the colonizers have pillaged the African continent in real life and in the movie. And, I think that it makes sense that they would turn what they have for their resources into Fort Knox, because most of the resources on the African continent are not owned by African people.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, I completely agree with the Wakandan philosophy, and I don't think that they should change it. And I'm not saying that I don't think that they should reach out, but I definitely don't think that they should, like, reveal their vibranium or even, like, send it anywhere. Like, I liked the idea of how, I forgot what her name was in the movie, but how the princess of the river tribe his like main love interest, Davida. Yeah, so I liked how she was like on like a secret mission and like helping like on the ground and like that kind of thing. And I
Right.
still feel like there are ways for them to use their resources and knowledge to like lift up oppressed people without giving that resource. Because something that I've just, one of my just own general opinions is like, you have technology and generally like people invent these technologies to make life better, but you really have no control over how that's used or who uses it. It's like once a technology is introduced into society, it has kind of like a will of its own and it does what it will do and there's nothing you can do about that. And I think it's hard for them to like keep that to themselves and keep it in a controlled environment.
Yeah, and I think what they do in the movie was they show the different sides of that, of that debate, right? Where they are doing these covert missions, and that's where Killmonger's storyline is born, because T'Chaka, Black Panther's father, was involved in the covert operations or found out that his brother was giving the vibranium away, so that's why he ended up having to kill him. So that debate is what drives the entire movie. So I think it's a complicated debate, and I'm really surprised that they put it in the movie. Like I thought it was really brave to put that subject in this big Marvel movie that's paid for by Disney. So I thought it was extremely brave to put that kind of story. Huh?
Yeah, and it makes for that. Kind of, like it. I feel like it stands out as a Marvel movie because they really don't generally like get that deep in Marvel movies. Yeah. They don't. They're kind of like more action and adrenaline packed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a good choice because the comic is that way. The comic's really heavy and kind of, it's very deep. So I'm glad that they didn't shy away from that they just went full force into those concepts and just went for it. So I think it really does stand out.
So you guys feel good about using this medium of that we normally think of as escapism, especially action movies, to talk about political and social issues? You don't think they're trying to do too much? That was one of the commentaries that some people had.
I mean, a lot of the comics, I'm not a comic expert, but one series that I did get into for a while was the X-Men. And it's very like all of the storylines are political. It's one way of introducing topics to a wider audience and making them think about it in another way by putting it into those alternate universes.
Yeah, and I also think it's a great way to communicate with a like variety of audiences because clearly if it's making $200 million, like people who might not necessarily like think about those things usually, or like let's just say like just how our country is so polarizing right now, like there are people who only watch news that really confirm like their own beliefs, and I feel like this movie was able to get to people of any political or social background.
Yeah, and I think it was a universal story, and I think also for people of other races to get some insight into, the sort of politics of African culture, So I think it was just eye-opening for everybody and really well woven into this movie, because it's a really complicated subject. But they were brave enough to put it in this movie, which I think I was quite surprised that they would even touch it, that they would try to kind of tackle it. But I thought it was really brave to really weave it into that storyline so much. Like it is about that,
Do you think that had anything to do with the writing, producing, or directing aspects of it?
Sorry, can you say that again, please?
I said, do you think that had anything to do with, who was writing, producing, and directing it?
Yeah, well, I think that the good thing with the guys that basically run Marvel is that when they hire a director, they study that person, they figure out, like, they make a really quite a calculated choice, and they just let that person make the movie that they want to make. So you could see that they really let the director just go for it. I mean, to have it begin in Oakland, California, so I think that was like I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was a really, that tells me that they really let him just go for it and tell the story he wanted to tell, and with the screenwriters. So the producers out there are very supportive of the directors. They hire someone that they think is good, and they just let them make the movie that they want to make, you know? So I think, yes, it has a lot to do with the writing and producing. Because if they support the director, then the director can really let loose and do what they want to do. And seeing the storyline that they let him do, I think that it tells you that he was really well supported, you know?
So there were so many themes in the movie. I feel like you could kind of see what you wanted to see almost, because there was just so much in the movie. Now I'm just going to drop this bombshell. For instance, there is a news outlet, which I will not name, but it rhymes with fake fart, that had on their cover or on their front page that Trump is the Black Panther and that Black Lives Matter is the Killmonger. So you see how they took their, you know, like theme and they just applied it to whatever. Just
Well, that's a special news outlet, so I don't think we'll give them the energy here.
That's a good point. Okay, so I have another question for all of you, and I want to pull you because I got into this with my spouse about the Killmonger, and I felt like what I walked away with from him, I didn't trust that his intentions were good. I didn't trust that he was really trying to empower people like oppressed people. I felt like he was going to give those weapons to, you know, other criminals and potentially violent and dangerous people. And that in the end, you know, when he was near death, he admitted he wanted everybody to feel the pain that he wanted, that he felt, to lose everything, like he lost everything, like he and the Black Panther accused him of this. Hey, you really just want the world to descend into chaos. It wasn't an egalitarian, we should share or we should not share. It was like, he said that. I get that he said that in the boardroom, but in his heart, I don't think that was really his intention. What do you guys think?
I think he definitely had revenge in his heart. You know, revenge was one of his major motivations. So it may have gotten, in addition to that, wanting to, you know, give some strength back to some community by opposing this other group, but definitely I think his number one motivation was revenge.
Well, he could have gotten revenge without, like, I feel like, having operatives all over the place to give weapons to. I feel like I doubt that it was. I don't know. I don't know if that was intentional in the plot, but it does seem like a bit of a continuity error with his big speech about wanting to like help communities and oppressed peoples, and then sending weapons to like
war dogs.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that he had the right goal, but the methods were more like brutal. It's because of what his of what he's experienced. So he's reflective of what's happened to him. So that's the only way that he knows, because he's a soldier, right? So he's thinking of it more like a like a takeover or a like revolution, where he's thinking of it that way, kind of like it's like Malcolm X versus the way that like Martin Luther King thinks. They have the same goal, but they go about it completely different ways. So I think that when people are, he represents the kind of angry version of of that, and T'Challa represents the like compassionate version of the same argument. So I think that's why they go at each other, because they're trying to do the same thing, but they're doing it by different methods.
Killmonger is the anger translator. He's like, no, just send all the guns everywhere. All this stuff is going down.
He's just a pure anger version, where he's just like, we've been oppressed and now we're going to fight back.
Well, I don't know that, but I think T'Challa he was going to continue the status quo originally more like his father, which is to just protect Wakanda and to keep everything insulated, because his what was her name? His the because
His love interest.
Love interest character, she was the one encouraging him to get more involved in what was going outside of Wakanda in the beginning of the movie, and he was resistant.
Yeah, I think that Wakanda has to move into the future, right? And Killmonger represents a way of just, like pulling him into the future, like pulling Wakanda into the future, like really aggressively. And I think Wakandans wanted to take slower steps and kind of, do it in a more controlled way, where he's like, screw it, let's just do it now. Let's just do it now, and let's just force everybody to understand us.
Without
we'll do it by
any
force,
thought of the consequences that the
yeah.
larger picture.
Yeah, he's just like, screw it. Yeah, but he represents the anger, so he's more impulsive. I thought it was good, and then also there was some of the other characters in the story. I forget the other character's name, but the one that was kind of siding with Killmonger, where he wanted T'Challa to bring back Killmonger's body, like you kill him or you bring him back. And then when T'Challa comes back and he's like, we weren't able to bring him back. And then when Killmonger brings him back, that's why he's like, oh, you think like me. So I think that was interesting, showing
Wakabi.
the different points of view, that he kind of represented a similar point of view, which is a more kind of aggressive take on things.
Yeah.
So,
but that guy, well, I don't know. No, I was just gonna say.
Her name's Nakia. We have a cousin named Nakia. I should not forget her name.
I felt like he was more manipulated because his parents had been taken away by Claw.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't seem to me that at the beginning he necessarily wanted to send weapons outside of Wakanda, though, or like even help people outside of Wakanda, but just that he wanted revenge. And I feel like
he wanted revenge for what happened for what Claw did to his family, and he had respect for Killmonger because Killmonger brought him what he wanted in his gut, which was to see Claw's dead body.
So we've talked a lot about the pros of the movie. What about the cons? What about the shortcomings? For instance, I really was kind of frustrated with how easily the Wakandan council and the 5 tribes descended into war amongst themselves. I felt like I had been so invested in their civility and their ability to maintain their society, even though there were the mountain people who, they obviously, there was some tension between the groups. So it's not like everything was perfect, but I just felt like it was beyond my understanding of what I thought their relationship was for it to be so easily torn apart.
When did they get torn apart?
When they were fighting. You don't remember that part? The whole war between all of the 5 tribes.
It was 5 tribes.
That wasn't the 5 tribes. That was the Dora Milaje against Wakabi's the men tribe. I don't know what his group was, but it was whoever Wakabi was leading ended up turning on Dora Milaje when the Dora Milaje saw that T'Challa was back and decided to side with him.
So they weren't all there? I thought they were all there.
No,
not that I don't recall that.
Yeah, I don't remember it being everybody, but I do understand.
Only one army.
In the comic, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I said it was one army. It was the army that was led by the guys whose parents were killed.
Mm-hmm. Wakabi? Is his name Wakabi?
I think it's Wakabi.
Wakabi. Okay, yeah. Wakabi's army.
And then when the warmonger broke tradition and she realized that he had no regard for, like, their culture and like all of that, and it was really just about revenge, then her and the royal guard thought with that one army.
No, I
Okay.
didn't.
People came
He
to
never agreed with Killmonger's character, but she had a loyalty to the throne and to the Black Panther throne, whoever sat on it. And then when T'Challa came back and they said that the battle or the challenge wasn't complete because T'Challa was still alive, then that gave her the ability to support T'Challa again instead of Killmonger. But she was determined to support, to be loyal to the throne, basically. But my issue with that scene, I did have the battle. My issue was I was all for the warrior women and all of that, but in that scene where you so clearly saw the large group of women and then this large group of men come into battle, and it was like, the black men and the black women fighting to the death. That was really hard for me to watch that kind of battle against black women and black women. And as much as I, love the Dora Milaje and I appreciate their strength, it was just, that one just hurt my heart just a little bit.
Yeah, mine too. That's probably why I was like, no, this would not happen.
It is harder to watch, but it's like new for us, right? It's literally the first movie of this kind that's made in Africa. And in the comic, there are a lot of conflicts. There is a lot of political conflicts with these different tribes, with the like ape tribe and there's all these different tribes, and there is that tension in the comics. So inevitably there will be confrontations. So, but I think, yeah, seeing, that visual of black people fighting each other on screen is like tough to watch. But I think it's something that we have to, if we want to see movies like this, we have to be able to see that kind of stuff, because it's a movie set in Africa. Like who else are they going to be fighting?
Yeah. I did
so
have
yeah.
I didn't have such an issue with the first scene when the Black Panther came to rescue Nakia, and that was a smaller confrontation, but there was just something about the imagery on that battlefield of the large group of men rushing and the large group of women coming into battle. That was a little tough for me.
I don't like it when the good guys fight each other. I didn't want them to fight. I was like, no, Mommy and Daddy, please don't fight. Just get along.
That's what makes you torn, right? It makes you torn while you're watching it, because everybody, yeah, it makes you torn. But I think it was like necessary.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I really kind of bothered me a little bit about the movie was that they all had different African accents. And I know that it was supposed to be like a collage of like lots of different African cultures, but it just bothered me because I feel like people generalize Africa a lot. And I don't want to make assumptions about the audience, but I do feel like there are a lot of people who probably thought that they like all sounded the same. And to me, I'm like, no, this person sounds like this and that person sounds like that. And so I don't know. It did bother me a little bit that they all had random African accents and they were all from the same region.
Yeah, it felt a little bit appropriative. Like, okay, we're just gonna borrow some stuff from everywhere. But at the same token, I thought about that, and I wonder if they did it intentionally because every African culture is gonna want to see some of themselves in the movie, right? And so I wonder if it gives every group something to latch onto. I was like, oh, the sister sounds Habesha, and then the love interest princess, she sounds Igbo, like, I don't know, like I could see that being a thing and everybody feeling left out if there wasn't some representation of their culture in Wakanda.
I think it was deliberate that they, because I saw, this is only based on an interview that I saw with Chadwick Boseman where he talked about them researching different African accents. That there was the Wakanda accent, but then the different tribes would have slightly different accents. Right. But I don't know all the details of that, but yeah. But the feeling is that it was intentional.
The music too, like there was music that I could tell were.
No, I can appreciate there being a collage, but if they're gonna do that, then I feel like there should have been slightly more consistency. Like at least people from the same family had the same accent. Like the mom, Black Panther, and the sister all had completely different accents.
Completely different.
Yeah.
And maybe that's just the skill and the execution of the accent.
I know I might be asking too much of Marvel. I'm sorry. That was really the only thing that bothered me, just because it just bothers me when I see it, just generally like when I'm watching TV or something, and it's just like a general African person or people, and they all either they'll have like fake African accents or they'll like have different sounding accents, and they're all supposed to be like, you know, together or from the same place, and it's just, it hurts my heart.
Yeah, I think like Nani said, it has a little to do with the execution, but then that could have been a little bit more training, because I know that like the actors were from so many varied cultures. Like Earl was pointing out the English actors that were in the film, and there were African American actors and some with African backgrounds. So that would lend to their interpretation being different of the accents as well.
Yeah, because the guy, Daniel Koya, he's the guy that was in Get Out. He's Nigerian, but he's from London. And Sherry is also from London. I'm not sure if she's African, but yeah, they had actors from all over. So yeah.
So what was your favorite moment of the movie? I'll tell you, mine was when Wakabe laid down his dirk for his woman. I was like, I cried. I'm not gonna lie. I was so happy that that scene was over too. But you know, so there was a lot going on for me emotionally that set me up for the tears. But that moment was just, I was like, yes, Black love.
I had two favorite scenes. One of them was when they were doing the crowning ceremony and they were asking about the challenge and the sister raised her hand. That was so good. Everybody was like so shocked. Like, I thought that was priceless. And
that's
then
really interesting.
With I don't know her name in the movie, but she's also in Walking Dead, where she was in the casino. Like that was my favorite scene.
She lost her wig?
Yeah.
When she lost her wig?
And just because like her dress was so beautiful, and that scene was very, very, I feel like that scene was really well done. I just like loved like her lines and her body and her outfit and her fighting, just everything.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That was,
or you,
okay.
Something.
Well, I was waiting for you. Like you can go and then I'll go last.
I don't know. I was just kind of taking it all in. I can't say that I had a specific favorite scene. I did like the one where he laid down his weapon for his wife. But it was just also just like a feeling, like even early in the film when T'Challa got off of his spacecraft and just the way he walked, you know, he was about to come into his right as king and coming back home with Nakia. Just that scene of him like getting off of that ship, walking with his shoulders back, being the king and coming back to this beautiful country.
and
I just
had a crush.
yeah, I like that.
Watch out, Earl.
I think it's fine. If Black Panther showed up and was like, I'm taking your woman, I'd be like, okay.
The Mountain King was bomb AF. He was so cute. I thought he was really cute.
Who?
Mountain King.
Who? Say that one more time. I didn't get it.
Mountain King. The king.
Oh, yeah. He was interesting.
I liked him.
That guy, what was his name?
In terms of the sequences that I liked, I thought the casino sequence was my favorite one because it reminded me of a James Bond movie, just with the level of style that was being portrayed in that sequence and just their sophistication, that they're kind of observers, that they're watching this kind of thing kind of come together, you know, when they were counting the people coming in different exits and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that sequence was done really well. I thought it was really powerful when she takes off her wig, because she's so uncomfortable in it to begin with, and she's just like, why do I have to wear this? So, and I think that's something, you know, that, that Black women talk about and stuff like that. So I think just kind of like putting that in the movie was great, that she just took it off and just like, I'm not wearing this thing. And that whole chase sequence, like with the car, and she was on top of the car. Like I thought that whole sequence was really, really, really well done. And then my other kind of just favorite scenes are the scenes with T'Challa and his sister. Like when he goes to the laboratory, and she's telling him about the new suit, and she knows what the suit's gonna do. When she's like kick the suit, and then
Oh,
it
that
just
was
goes
great.
flying across the room,
Yeah.
you know. And he's like, "What the hell?" And she's just setting him up the whole time,
Uh,
And he knows that the second time he hits it, that it's gonna, like throw him across the room, and she's filming it. So I thought just that kind of was great, because that's what a sister would do,
yeah.
to kind of take him down a couple of pegs. So I thought that those are my kind of favorite moments. There's plenty of other favorite moments, but that when I just think of it really quickly, that's good. And then, actually, my last one is just Killmonger. I thought that he was realized really well, even though it's a very hard character to watch. I could the scene when Killmonger challenged um T'Challa, and when he was like taking off his shirt, and then you see this kind of all the body markings that he's been doing. So you could see that T'Challa was a bit scared, like, oh crap, this guy's really ready for this, and that's right out of the comic, because in the comic, Killmonger is a better fighter than T'Challa is. Like that was so accurate, because he does know, he's more of a soldier, so he knows how to fight really well. So just that moment was really tense, because you could see in that moment that Killmonger was ready. He was ready for that fight, and T'Challa wasn't slightly ready. He wasn't ready to that level, that this person has been building this up in their head for so long. So he was ready. So I thought like those are my three kind of standout things about the movie that I really liked.
Mhm. Well, this was fun, guys. This is a great discussion. We already have tickets to see the movie again next Sunday, and I know that the second time that I see it, I expect to see a lot more details and remember a lot more, because this was all just such a feast to take in. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it again, and we're going to see it at a special screening with a group of like-minded people. There's going to be a panel discussion after, so I just can't wait to see what other information we garner from the next event.
Yeah, I want to see some celebrity pictures too. Woohoo! All right, everyone. Well, thank you for watching. We will see you next time on Totally Functional.
Don't forget to click that subscribe button.
Remember, no one loves you like family, be it the family you make or the one you take.